So, Liam, before we get into the inner workings of Sync 365, this fantastic tool you've created, I'd love just to hear a bit about yourself, what you like to spend your time doing, and what brought you here.
Yeah, so a big background in tech, got straight into the workforce, working in tech support, went up through, had my own managed service provider for almost 15 years, and Sync 365 came out to resolve an issue within that business.
Okay, and what does your day-to-day look like now? What's your role?
I'm mostly customer facing, so demos with the new clients, helping with onboarding or queries with our customers, and managing our development team.
Okay. And now I know you're an Australian, so I'm sure you love a good barbecue. Someone asks you at a barbecue, what is Sync 365? That conversation where it always happens. What does that look like? Give us that chat.
Oh, that's an interesting one. If it's someone not in the MSP space, I'd typically tell them that we're a billing automation tool to help our clients automate their billing and save them time and make sure that their invoices are accurate. On the MSP front, it's more around how do we improve the trust with their customers by having accurate invoicing and save them the admin time and hassle each month from having to reconcile all of these invoices.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that trust piece is really important. I think sometimes it's something that gets overlooked. What do you think helps build trust with Sync 365? How does that help the MSPs in that sense?
So we've got a number of key features that allow our clients to send their invoices and include the usernames for their client of who's got what and show them exactly what they're being billed for rather than just an arbitrary number that may not match up with the number of staff they have or another way that they're invoicing someone. So they can really be transparent on what is being billed and why they're getting billed for that quantity.
So it basically gives them the ease of communication with their clients for what they're being billed, makes it so they're not getting billed wrong as well, right? Because that ultimately causes friction. If you charge your customer the wrong amount, they're going to get a bit frustrated with you. So you're solving that problem with a really simple automated tool.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because you can have times where it might be 3 months until someone reconciles and updates the quantity. And in that time, if a customer's let go of 5 staff members, then you're overbilling them for 5 for that whole time until someone actually manually changes it. So we take that manual human step out of the loop and just automate it with a daily check on the quantities and an update automatically.
So there's two sides to it then really. You're saving the bit of annoying your client by essentially overbilling them, but also at the same time, you're not getting your own revenue lines wrong, meaning that you're getting your own accounts in the wrong position, ending up in a difficult business situation. If that's one client and you're an MSP dealing with hundreds of different tenants in your account, that could be a really massive problem if you're overlooking it, right?
100%. And it works exactly in the opposite way. If you've got a customer that regularly changes, adds and removes staff, as an MSP, if they put on 10 staff in the middle of the month and you're not capturing that, and it's a month later or 2 months later, you're paying your vendors for the cost of all those licenses, but not billing the customer.
Okay, so this is almost like having an accountant working 24/7, just checking every single line item again and again without having to actually have that person sat there doing it manually.
Yeah, that could be a way to phrase it for sure.
One thing I find really interesting, having got to know you, is you're an Australian founder living in the UK.
Yep.
You've got a chief revenue officer who's Canadian, and Sync 365 is actually based in Singapore, right?
Yep.
How did that happen?
And developers in Poland.
Okay, wow, amazing. So another country to add to the list, a really global company.
Yeah.
Tell me the story. What got us to this point?
Growing up in Australia and starting my business there, I wanted to get out of Australia and just experience a different marketplace, explore the world a bit, and got the opportunity to move to the UK. My grandpa's Scottish, so I could get a 5-year visa really easily. And just through that whole process, has just given us different options of where the company should be based, what makes it most effective, who are the best developers we can get to have a reliable team and helps that they're in my time zone, and really just deliver a quality product.
Sure, makes a lot of sense. And so growing up in Australia then, what was that like? I'd just love to hear about life growing up a little bit more and what led you into the MSP world.
I guess it's hard to compare to anything not having grown up anywhere else. But in experiencing a few different countries, I find it's not hard to have a comfortable life in Australia. We're a very lucky country. It's easy to have a fortunate upbringing and just go through the motions. I went straight from school. I really didn't like school, so dropped out in year 11 and got straight into work. Worked my way up through the tech world, up into senior positions and higher level positions, and then got out into the managed service provider world, and then eventually started my own managed service provider because I wanted to provide a better result to our clients. And through that process and just always focusing on how can we optimize our business process, how can we be better and more efficient, that's kind of what led to Sync 365 coming about.
I think knowing Australia as well, you've got that great lifestyle around you, so you want to be able to enjoy it. So being sat at a computer all day, stressing in the evening because your billing process isn't right, really isn't that great. You want to be getting down to the beach or to the pool. So was that a bit of a motivator for you, automating things so you can live a better life?
Yeah, I've always looked at the mantra of work smarter, not harder, because you can slog away for tens of hours a week to reconcile things manually or check things. And meeting so many different business owners, especially in the smaller business world, some of them just don't recognize that the time they're spending on things is an actual cost to the business and a cost to you. They see it as, I'm not handing out money for something, so I'm saving money. But what they're missing is that's one of their highest costs, their own time.
Yeah, I think that's a really common thing with founders. You end up in that position where you don't value your own time right, and therefore you end up just burning through that where you could be actually doing stuff that generates revenue. So being a founder yourself, what's your biggest issue like that? Where do you find a gap where you could still optimize your time?
Oh, there's so many things. And especially having that entrepreneurial spirit, there's just new and different things you constantly want to engage in or do. And with the rise up of AI these days, you can do more things faster. So you just end up filling your time doing more things and outputting more things. And so it's really just making sure you get a good balance.
Yeah, I think AI is making everything so accessible nowadays. It's almost like creating a divergence of your focus, right? So you can do so many more things, but actually it makes it harder to dig down into the things that are right. How do you keep disciplined on that and make sure that you're constantly pushing Sync 365 forwards?
Yeah, a good structure I've used is really blocking out big chunks of time in the calendar. So planning your week ahead, going, this day is going to be focused on maybe feature updates or planning out how we're doing that in the development. This day is on testing new fixes and features that we're releasing and making sure that drives ahead.
And it seems like it's going well. Like I say, you've got the company working in different countries now. You've also got clients in many more countries as well. I know you've got a big user base in the US, into Africa and Asia as well. So when does Sync 365 really start to feel like an international company?
From the start, it was fairly international. I started in Australia, but very quickly we had US-based clients. And within, I think, the first 12 months, I started seeing our clients recommending the product to other clients on the ConnectWise user groups and different bits like that. And that was really interesting. And that's one of the great things about being a software app is we don't need to be in the country to be able to provide the service and provide the value.
You mentioned there about a lot of people talking about your product in the forums, in the different communities. What do you think it is about Sync 365 that makes it so shareable and such a great discussion point?
I think a few of the valuable traits are that I've come from the MSP background, so I completely understand the process and how to execute it in the business. It's not come from an outside venture capital firm that's just made a product to try and solve something, but doesn't understand the process. And also because we're so passionate about helping managed service providers, when our clients request a feature or have an idea and we see that it fits across that MSP network, we're really quick to implement and add new features and bits that help MSPs.
Sure. I think being able to grow the company in a way that aligns with your customers is really powerful. But sometimes customers don't always know everything that's actually correct about you. So what is one thing people assume regularly that's actually completely wrong about Sync 365?
I would say if from their distributor, they get a free sync tool that does some really basic functionality and they just go, oh, I've got this. It does this basically, so I don't need something like Sync 365. But what they're really missing out on is all of the more advanced functionality that can really help them if they've got a more complex client or their complete other side of things like billing for their managed support and other recurring services that aren't from their distributor that they can use us to really automate that billing process.
Got you. So the misconception really is that Think 365 is purely just a license synchronization, whereas actually it's many more things and it's much smarter and actually captures all of the revenue lines properly.
Correct.
So take me back to Australia. You were running an MSP for 15 years. So how did that business run and what did a normal week go like there?
Yeah, I grew that to have 26 staff, support over a couple thousand users across our client base. So I was really focused on, from the start, on not making myself the contact and be all and end all for the business, and really empowering our staff to be accountable and be able to try stuff and fail. And so through that grew a very great team that would help perpetuate the business and help it grow and allow me to step back and focus more on the management side and really business direction. So day to day was a lot more around our weekly planning. What are our quarterly goals? How do we keep track of these and make sure we're delivering on our goals?
Okay. And what did you really love about that? What do you miss still now about running an MSP yourself?
From the start, one of my core focuses was a fantastic culture. I wanted to be a business where people were excited to get up and go to on a Monday, not dread going to. And we built such an incredible culture that people loved work and they loved the company and loved being there. And I think shifting out of that and moving to a new business where it's a bit more separated and we're not in an office space, I think I miss that, having a location to go to every morning and having that culture there.
Yeah, I think having that great team culture is a really powerful thing. And really, it's what separates some of the best MSPs in the market now. Looking around, having that great people culture allows you to deliver better service to your clients at the end of the day. You must have done quite well at that in the end to be at thousands of clients on there. And when you did get them on, you mentioned there that operationally you had things really nailed down. Is that where Think 365 originated then, in your own process optimization in your MSP?
Yeah, 100%. We identified the tool we were using was just, it kept breaking, it kept making us use all of this time and it was expensive. And so it just really was wiping out any profitability on our Microsoft licensing. So the licensing side was the first phase. And then from there, we realized we can really empower these other accounts that change monthly and that you need to bill for, like your customer support, et cetera, that we could build in ways to be able to use and automate that.
And you mentioned expensive there. I think that's always a big friction point for new signups within a business. So for you at Think 365, I understand you've put out actually a free trial offer to anyone looking to come on board as an MSP so they can actually see it before they start.
Yeah, exactly. And a couple of things we hated in the MSP world is so many vendors want to lock you in for a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year contracts and force you to be stuck in something. So we're very much against that. And we only do month to month, and we start with a 30-day free trial so you can get in, set it up, see what it's all about and see how it works in your system.
Yeah, I think that's completely the right way. At the end of the day, you don't need to sign someone up to 3 years, 5 years, whatever. If you've got a great product, they're going to stay around, right?
That's exactly our mantra. So if we provide value, keep providing it, keep doing the right things, there's no reason for a customer to leave.
That makes complete sense to me, and I can see why we've got so many customers who do stay around for the long term. Just as a last point on your MSP life, because I know we talk with so many MSPs, if you could go back and talk to you in your early days of running your own MSP, what would be the piece of advice that you'd give?
I spent a lot of time in different user groups. I know there's some people out there that are concerned about talking to their competition, but I was always very forward with sharing our processes, sharing how we do things, because if we all get better, it's our customers that benefit from it. And I think really just in the first few years, it took me a bit of time to work out how to actually step back and allow staff the room to fail and learn from it and be okay with them failing as long as it wasn't too big of an issue that gets caused for a customer. And through that process and really giving your staff the trust that they can do it and you're there to support them really helps you step back and allow your staff to flourish.
And one thing I've noticed when engaging with the MSPs out there that are coming in to Think 365 on a daily basis, inquiring about the product, is the amount of them that still use spreadsheets to reconcile everything. Surely that's a really old school way to do things. Why do you think people are doing that?
I think in part there's a comfort factor and there's also a not knowing factor. They work through that and they know how to work through that, and it might take them 2-3 days a month, depending on how many clients they have, to do that. And it might cause some human input issues as well, and they'll get things wrong. And they're just not sure how to articulate the actual issue that they've got. So they know they have a problem, but they don't know what they're looking to solve. And unless something comes across them or someone talks to them about it, that they know that they've got this issue, this is how they're dealing with it, but they don't know how to find a solution to it.
And you mentioned there quite often that's a 2 to 3 day a month process for someone on a pretty reasonable salary, right?
Yeah.
How long does it take with Sync 365 to do the same thing?
Typically, they might spend 1 to 2 hours a month
Wow.
doing some checks in Sync 365, and the system's taking care of the rest.
Wow. So it really is a case of days down to hours. And I know in some case with some clients, they've already got the confidence in the system where it's almost like an auto approve, right?
Correct, yeah. On average, we're saving our clients about 35 hours a month, and the larger ones, that scales up a lot more.
Wow. So even if you don't catch missed revenue or anything like that, just the admin time alone is saving way more than the system costs.
Yeah, 100%.
I can see why people go for it. So I know another thing as well that people relied on was ConnectWise Cloud Console. I believe that was something people used to use. What happened? I believe that disappeared from the market. Is that right?
So that was actually the catalyst for Sync 365 starting. We used Cloud Console. ConnectWise decided they were going to sunset that and move us to a new product called Unite. Unite's was double the cost at the time. And so the cost of it alone was pretty much all of the profit in our Microsoft licensing. And we were just like, this is a joke. What's the point of this? So that really drove us to create a product in the marketplace that was affordable for MSPs, suited for them, and just works well and is reliable.
So that's why ConnectWise is one of the partners that we work with in terms of the actual PSA side. What do you really like about their system? What's something that you think is really powerful for MSPs?
ConnectWise was one of the early large main professional service automation tools for MSPs. So they grew really well because they had a good suite of products and they integrated well together. And it was really helpful with having the right business processes early on. So I used ConnectWise for about 18 years across a couple of businesses and was really deep in that side of things.
Okay. And so when you used to just use the classic tools on ConnectWise, or even before that, when you were using manual processes, what were the shock moments for clients? Did you ever have that moment yourself where a client would pick up the phone and say to you, Leon, we've been billed for this. What the hell? We've not had that many people on there in months. Have you had those moments yourself?
Yeah, definitely in the past. And when you've got your recurring invoicing set up and you're more distracted on support calls and tickets and dealing with that, and you don't have someone dedicated looking at the agreements every month and changing things, stuff just gets missed and stuff gets billed and clients are like, why am I being billed for this? And then you have to go back and spend all these admin hours looking at why this is built. What's it charged? Is it a wrong charge? Do we need to then compensate the customer with some credits because we've been billing them incorrectly?
Sure. And that's the thing really with that, is it touches on so many different areas. It's not just the satisfaction, it's also the admin work that goes into that, the billing, lack of reconciliation. For you, what was the biggest pain point? Was it missed revenue? Was it extra admin work? Or was it that really damaging the relationship with the clients?
The biggest is the amount of time you can spend on admin, or the flip side of that is you're not even doing it. So you have months where these counts and quantities are incorrect. And then that snowballs into issues with clients. Because I remember back in the day before we had Sync 365 and Cloud Console wasn't working correctly, we were overbilling a customer for 8 months. And it got found out at that 8-month period. And then we had to go back and look through all of these invoices and then create credits for them where it was wrong because it just hadn't been reconciled correctly and hadn't updated correctly.
Got you.
And that also breaks trust with the client because then they go, oh, well, you've been billing me wrong here for this long. Where else is there issues?
So in a market where Microsoft license margin is getting thinner and thinner, losing those clients because of a simple billing error is just really a terrible way to go.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we talk about is transparency with the clients, and really just we want to help our customers build trust with their customers.
One thing I always want to understand when coming on board with a company, and something that I know I asked you originally when we first met, is who really does this impact in the team? I think there's a few different people who this touches that might not even realize they're being impacted by this, right?
Yeah, so definitely in the smaller MSP, it's usually the founder or the director that's doing all the billing and dealing with this. As you step up a bit more, it's usually a part-time accounts person or a full-time accounts person. Sometimes it can be like the account managers that are dealing with their customers and keeping this stuff up to date, and it impacts them. And as you get larger, it can be more of a CFO role or a procurement manager, someone that's dealing with the Microsoft licensing, or even just a licensing specialist that deals with all of these changes.
Yeah, that's a really interesting piece of it. It does touch on so many different people within the organization. I know when we were chatting earlier as well, one of the roles that I'd never thought of, but it makes complete sense, is people within retentions department. Because actually, by having this in place as an MSP, you're not going to have as many people coming in with billing friction. And if you do have, you've got the evidence to back it up, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess just on top of that too is the account manager roles that are going out meeting the clients. One feature we implemented from a request of one of our clients was in our monthly report, the ability to add all their license subscriptions and when they're coming up for expiry. So all of a sudden, for their monthly or quarterly meetings that they have with the customer, all that license detail's there, and they don't need to go to multiple systems and pull out and organize when their Microsoft licenses are expiring to start talking about it.
And I think something you touched on earlier as well, and again there, is product input from clients. That seems something that you're really passionate about. Why is that?
Through the MSP life, especially when you get to these products that are just some big faceless organizations where you report an issue and just nothing happens for years, or either there's something that would be really beneficial for your business and you put a feature request in and nothing gets touched with it for 2-3 years. And so I find it really important when we get a good suggestion and something that will be positively impactful for everyone, that we really pay attention to it and have our clients feel supported and that we care about their thoughts.
That makes sense. I totally agree. The big VC-backed companies, you tend to hear all of these vision statements and pieces like that, but you don't actually really follow through on that. So for anyone listening or watching this right now who's considering coming on board with Sync 365, if they want to, can they speak with you before they come on board?
Yeah, 100%. We're more than happy to book in a demo time, book in a call. At the end of the day, I want them to get the most value out of it. Happy to provide them advice and how they can set it up the best in their system.
I think that's having come from a sales background, knowing that I'll get chucked on a call where I don't really know what I'm doing as much as the founder of a business does. So I think that's something that's really unique and I love about the way you set up this business, is that you're open to talk with customers, and not just on the sales side, right? I believe you actually catch up with quite a few of our clients on a regular basis and even give them sneak previews of a roadmap.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a lot of great client relationships, and the ones that are really active with us and request features and want to see more out of the product, we're really interactive with them and give them access to beta features and get feedback.
That is a great way to run a business. I really love that. And I laugh a little bit because I've been sat in so many companies before where they say these things and don't do them. But I've really seen that with Sync 365 already. There's a really great move towards actually delivering what you say. And I think that leads on really nicely to with the actual problem itself. So why did it need to exist? What was the big problem, first of all, that Sync 365 was addressing?
The big problem initially was Microsoft licensing. The Microsoft license, as all our MSPs will know, is just a nightmare. There's thousands of SKUs. There's price changes regularly. There's 3 to 4 different SKUs for the one license type based on if you're doing an annual commitment or not. And just managing it is a nightmare. And so many MSPs are just left in the dark, not knowing how to really effectively manage that. So part of the point here is to just give them an easy system to follow that's simple, that they can use, that just they set it up and set up our alerts and they manage by exception. We let them know when there's something they need to address. They don't need to be checking it regularly.
And when you were first concepting the idea and coming up with it, what made you decide to create almost a middle layer, a go-between, rather than saying our PSA doesn't get all the information it needs, so we're going to build our own PSA? What stopped that and made you make the decision to create an integration layer instead?
There's so many good PSAs out in the marketplace and so much competition there, and it's a massive undertaking because of the different areas and different things they all pull together. So I'd rather be laser focused on a really specific issue to really deliver that well into multiple PSAs than try and recreate the wheel.
And right now we're working with ConnectWise, Autotask and Halo PSA. That's right, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
And we already touched a little bit on ConnectWise earlier in our conversation. You've got your own experience with them. Why Autotask and Halo?
Yeah. Autotask, especially when we were starting out, naturally was the second largest player in the marketplace. I also had experience with Autotask, and they don't have a tool themselves that does it. So it made a very good segue on the next thing to integrate with. And then following down from that, Halo becoming a big player in the marketplace. Yes, they've got some of this functionality built in, but all of the advanced functionality we provide is not in there. And especially for someone that's an indirect Microsoft partner, they lose a lot of things like they can't do their Azure consumption billing. So that was one of the first areas we focused on, some of the lacking features in Halo, so we can bring that to our customers.
Sure. So you decided to really focus on what you can do best rather than trying to compete with the market. Sounds like that was the right decision, but you can't always make the best decisions all the time. So what are a few things that you tried with Sync 365 but just really didn't work?
There hasn't been too many, but it's when we've gone down the track of trying to do something too broad, like an interface that you can just plug into any API, where it's just doesn't really have a good, clear goal outcome, and it's too flexible to make it easy to configure or do. That's the type of thing we've just scrapped because it just doesn't end up making sense.
I think that's a really interesting point, because right now, in the age of AI and systems that pull different platforms together, be it systems like Zapier, everyone thinks they can make everything work together, but you've really decided to niche down and just focus on really getting one thing right. What do you think Sync 365 brings to the party that someone couldn't go and do out the box themselves with a couple of days of work talking to Claude?
Yeah, sure. Well, the main thing is the complexity of the Microsoft API system and the complexity of the different functionality and the different PSAs, how they deal with license changes, how they deal with prorating to make sure it's up to date, and even just the multiple Microsoft environments you have to talk to deliver on each of these things. For instance, the difference between licensing versus Azure consumption versus the massive flexibility we've got in our custom licensing. If you want to build out and then maintain it, especially with how often Microsoft just changes things without letting you know and breaks things, it becomes something that you just constantly have to sink more and more time in. You might get an initial setup that works okay, but then something changes and it just stops working. And then you've got to spend a day, a week, a month re-engineering it and fixing it. And it's just not time well spent as a person in an MSP.
That makes sense. And so our development team, I take it, they're a bit ahead of the curve. They know when things are going to change. So from a client perspective, they don't even have to worry. Systems are already prepared for the changes that are coming. And when there are, ultimately, like there always is in any business, technical issues, our team have a really great SLA, don't they, to get systems running again for clients?
Yeah, that's right. And we'll typically share things that are changing to our customers that they might not even be aware of. Like earlier this year, Microsoft released this extended service term thing for licenses. And what they did was any license that was set to cancel, they made it automatically extend and continue billing the MSP. So if you didn't get in there and actually update this, then you'd just still be on the hook for a license and you wouldn't even realize they would move on to it.
So it's almost like one secret tick box, which can just save a client a bunch of money and they're not really telling them about it, but you are.
Yeah. We let all our customers know about that and also added a function into the software to show if that's enabled or not. So they could get an easy list of the subscriptions through Sync 365 and go, oh, this one's going to extended service. I need to turn that off.
That sounds like a really handy feature. And I think you've built a lot of those in. And I know, like we've said before, a lot of those handy little features have come from customer input as well. What's the one feature that's come from customer input that you think really stands out above the rest?
I think one of the key features we delivered this month is the calculated custom licenses, which came from a need of some of our clients where they'll bundle products with their managed user support. So it might be that their mailbox backup is included or like a antivirus or something is included in their managed user, but then they have an overage of that. And they had no way that they could easily include the ones that were part of that, but then still bill the excess quantity. So we really developed this with the flexibility so you can calculate that and really simply have here's a net overage to bill. So say I'm billing 10 managed users for support, and as part of that, they have X product included, but that product actually applies to 15 things in the business. So we need to bill them for 5, and they've got 10 included over here. So with this, instead of it being a manual process of adjusting this, we can go, we've got a total of 15. We're taking the managed users out of that. So there's just 5 to bill, and then keeping that up to date automatically.
I think with that, you can see how in a lot of businesses that would be a spreadsheet record, and how easily that spreadsheet record could go wrong because things are constantly changing. And I think one of the things in that constant change piece as well, which I really love, is the actual impact of midterm changes. So things that are changing within the billing cycle. And am I right in saying that's where a lot of customers actually miss out on revenue or overbill when things change mid-month?
100%. That is a major area where MSPs are just losing so much revenue. I think the stat is about 10% over a year of your recurring revenue gets missed that way. Because it's the big thing that multiplies it is if you've billed on the 1st of the month and then your customer adds 10 licenses on the 7th of the month, you pay Microsoft or your vendor from the 7th of the month to the end of the month, the cost of that, but then you only start billing them from the following month. So you've lost 2/3 of that price that's just come out of your pocket.
So, and that would just be adding up month to month. And so over the course of a year, and I know I've seen this on our revenue calculator, is some people are literally burning tens of thousands of dollars a year on just this one issue.
Yeah, especially if they've got larger clients that have lots of staff changes, there's a massive impact to your bottom line there.
Got it. So even just with that one simple piece of plugging that gap, Think 365 more than pays for itself.
Typically, yes.
And I think one thing that is great about the business is you've still stayed true to your principles sort of when you've set out. So even though you've got all of these great different features now, what's the core thing that stayed true about Think 365 all the way from the beginning?
I would say the core has really been when we build a function or add new features, the drive has been to just keep it simple and effective, not overcomplicate it. Make it so the MSP can get in there and use it, and they don't need to do a month-long training like for Microsoft licensing. So it's just laid out, easy to use, makes sense, and is effective.
And that in itself is quite a complex process that you've built, but actually it solves the problem really simply. So without running the big architecture diagram and grabbing a pen and writing on the mirror up here, just take me through what one change looks like. So a client adds a Microsoft 365 user halfway through the month. What happens in Think 365? How does that get into the PSA? And how do we make sure that it all goes smoothly for our clients?
Yeah, so once they've got it set up in Sync 365, we're checking daily for any changes. So when they add those licenses, we pick up that change, we compare it to what's in the PSA, and we make that change in the PSA. If it needs a prorate, we add the prorate, and we make sure that the prorate's right. If they've got the option selected, we add the usernames of who was on that prorate too. And so that way it just keeps it in sync and keeps it up to date without the MSP having to do anything.
So it really is just as simple as set it up and it goes and does it for you.
Yep, 100%.
And where does Think 365 actually get all of the Microsoft information from?
So from the MSP side, we tie into their Microsoft Partner Center and then also tie into their PSA tool. And all of our backend functionality ties all that together for them.
And with that backend functionality, what's that mapping? Is that mapping against the actual fields within the PSA setup? How does that bit work?
Yeah, largely it's picking your licenses or subscriptions and selecting what the product is and what agreement or contract that's going to. And then you've got a few different options like adding usernames to the invoice, etc. But once you've set that up and saved it, we just take care of the whole process and making sure it's up to date.
Got you. And we can make that as complex or as simple as an individual MSP needs, right? So some of our clients I know have really complex rules they want configuring, and others might want it super simple and vanilla out of the box. How do we help them with that?
Yeah, so I'll touch on a couple things there. One is you've got the MSPs where they've had a salesperson go out and sell something and added a discount to win the deal or something. So all of a sudden they've got 12 different pricing for this one license. And we can help them facilitate that, even though it is more of a complex setup, but it gives them the flexibility to manage that a bit more effectively than just manually updating prices in the agreements. And the other side of that, we've got a great new feature coming out, which is our automated license mapping. So that way we're able to help them set up all the relevant billing profiles for whether it's a bill monthly, it's a bill annual commitment, and each of the licenses. And when they've got that set up, they can pick for each customer what the default contract or agreement is. And from that point, we can automate that whole mapping process and save them that time entirely too.
And can that go down even more granular if it needs to, so like department filters where different rules might be required?
Yeah, that's correct. So on the filters, if they're billing by department or by location, they can pick a different agreement for each of those filters. And so then that'll flow on to the right place too.
And with the new customer coming on board, even though it is super simple to set up, am I right in saying that you'll actually help them right now? I know you're running a bit of an offer where you're giving an hour consultation with each setup. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We'd much rather get involved with them, help them get it set up correctly from the start and really hit the ground running.
So if somebody does want to come on board and actually get that time in with you for free, get all of the guidance and setup done for them, how do they get started on that?
Best way is to just start off with the free trial. You can hit the Get Started on the sync365license.com website, set up your free trial, get your login, and then you'll get an option to book a time with us.
That sounds great, and definitely a really easy one to do, getting in there. And I believe people can book directly into your diary as well.
That's right. Yep. I'll get a link for that so we can get the onboarding done. And it's completely no risk because you've got 30 days free to try it. Even after that, we only bill a minimum of 10 clients. So you can get in there at a really low cost, play around, see how it really positively impacts your business.
That sounds great. And yeah, I can see why people sign up. I think it's so easy to get going with Sync365 and see that early impact there. What is it that they'll actually see in the back end of their PSA when they come on board? Will they see everything's just records being updated on a daily basis and that just writes into the standard records? Or how does that bit work?
Yeah, so when we first link up to their agreements, we're going to take over the relevant line item in those agreements on the first sync. And then any changes that happen, they'll see that sync through in their audit trail.
And I know we've mainly touched on standard 365 license side of things so far. I think one of the really exciting things that we've launched in the past year has been our Azure billing integration. Tell me all about that. I'd love to understand that a bit clearer.
Certainly. So Azure can be such a beast and usually involves lots of spreadsheets or reconciliation files from your vendor or from Microsoft. And we've just built it the same as the rest of our system. How can we make it simple and effective? So even indirect Microsoft partners can use our system and tie into their tenants that they provide Azure for. And each month we'll automatically pull in the relevant data, mark it up based on whatever their billing profile says they want to mark it up as. And one of the great features is our invoice descriptions. We'll process all of those thousands of line items of Azure and simplify it into an easy to read description for customers. So instead of 1,000 items, it might just say storage and the total storage costs, the networking, total networking costs. And it's something that as someone that's not in tech can understand on their invoice.
That makes complete sense, I think, because you also just need that consolidation piece, right, as well. It's great to pull all the details through and have that level of granularity coming in, but actually doing the consolidation work as well, actually, that's a lot of the manual task normally, right?
Yeah. And I guess the other side of that for the internal staff is if they have any queries about their Azure consumption, we've got really handy graphs and items in there per company. So you can see what was billed this month versus the past month. And so if there's all of a sudden been a spike of costs somewhere, it's really easy for one of your techs or your accounts department to go, oh, this line item is up by $300. And you can explain that to the customer.
And what happens if, let's say there's an error at, I don't know, the Microsoft side, the data's incomplete, something goes wrong. How does that look for our clients? I think that's always an important consideration when signing up to a new platform is, what are the things that happen if it goes wrong? Does that mean that all of my billing data's damaged for a month, or can it be patched? How does that work?
Yeah, so over the last 5 years, we've been through many different Microsoft system issues, and that's allowed us to build out a lot of protections and logic for when Microsoft systems do something weird. Like just recently, it was responding as a successful response, but with no licenses. So normally a system would look at that and go, all of these licenses have been deleted, cancel everything on the agreement. But we know from our past history with Microsoft that getting a response like that is actually not a successful response. So we gate that and protect that from impacting the customers.
Got you. So like normal, simple count-only tools that aren't built to be as smart and are more for just simple reconciliation, I guess a lot of them might actually fall down at those points.
100%, yeah.
And what does an audit trail for a standard Sync 365 client look like, particularly from a finance perspective? Because I think it's really clear from what we've discussed about how it looks for a technical person, but someone in finance who's running the numbers, and what do they get to see that's relevant to their world?
Yeah, I guess the simple thing is we've got a lot of good overviews reports that they can look at, but on a per client basis, they can hit our history tab and really see what's changed and what date and by how much to really get a clear view. And if they need it, dig into the logs a lot further. But the idea is we just do things reliably and make it work, so people don't need to be going in and checking logs and looking at history.
And to take all of what we've just discussed and distill it down into a way that I can understand as a non-technical person, it's almost like Sync 365 is the traffic controller, almost like being at a set of traffic lights. You've got someone there who's saying, this license record needs to go here into the PSA. This one, oh, actually, hold on, there's an error with the data, so we're going to stop it and make sure we reprocess. And then all of this traffic that's clean can just flow through and bill on. Would you say that's a nice, simple way to summarize it?
Yeah, I think that's a good way.
Now, one thing that I know we get asked a lot is what is different between Sync 365 and a traditional license sync?
So the major difference is as you get to more complex customers or more advanced functionality. For instance, there's a lot of distributors that will provide a basic sync tool that just syncs the license counts across, syncs the Azure consumption across, but doesn't really do anything. So you still have the super messy invoices, the no clarity for customers. You don't have that transparency to show who's assigned what license, to really just preempt those questions with the customer before they have to ask your accounts department. And then where we really start to shine is if you've got more complex scenarios. So if, for instance, a great example is a franchisee and a franchisor, where they might have 200 franchisees under a Microsoft tenant, and they need to bill each of them separately for the licenses they're providing. And we can carve that up automatically and keep that billing in check automatically, which you just can't do with any of the other tools.
Got you. And I guess really the biggest thing, it's not just that we're doing the sync, it's that we're actually able to provide a full audit trail behind it. So if somebody does come in on the client side, they can ask the MSP, what's this and this? And rather than having to go through thousands of records, it's click a button and they can get the answer there that's almost ready to go and take into an email and explain to their client.
Yeah, they can just see this business premium license quantity increased on this date, make it real simple.
And to be fair to the out-of-the-box systems that might get shipped with a PSA, what are the sort of situations they're good for? Who do they work for?
They're great for usually more smaller MSPs that just have really simple requirements. They don't have complex customers. Their customers are usually smaller, where all they need is, I have X licenses, I need to bill X licenses. Especially if they bill for time and materials, they don't do recurring services. That can be a good fit. And we've got a number of clients that use their distributor or built-in tool for their basic Microsoft license sync, and then use us for all of their managed user billing and other recurring services that they just can't get that functionality with the other tools.
So what makes an MSP a good fit for Sync 365?
Our best customers are the ones that really want to reduce their admin time, they're very automation forward, and they want to just have reliable systems that work and are up to date. And they want to have a partnership with their vendor rather than just have a vendor they pay each month and do that. We really want to have good partnerships and save time for our customers.
Got you. So it's all about really having smart systems, but smart systems that you can actually interact with and engage with the team that build it.
Yeah, and especially as they grow and they have more Microsoft tenants, like the more tenants you have, the more complex it is and the more positive impact we have on their business.
And so just to summarize on the traditional Sync versus Sync 365, ultimately it's a case of we do real reconciliation, and a traditional sync basically just updates a number in the PSA every month.
Yeah, pretty much. And the other side of that is they're typically more laborious to set up. So where we've got some really simple options to link things up and tie it in, you've got to go through many more options, many more screens to do the same setup. So even just managing new licenses you get on and the stuff you need to manually do in it, the time savings on that alone, if you have lots of license changes, makes more sense to use Sync 365.
So one thing that I found really interesting when going through sort of customer conversations with you when I first joined the organization was the custom license billing. That seemed to be something that really impressed people. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, how it works, and what does it bring to the table?
Yeah, certainly. So the custom licenses came about as a way to bring in how many different products can we actually bill without having to have a direct integration to 300 plus different vendors that our users might use. And what we realized is 90+% of your recurring licenses tie into either a user, a device, a Microsoft license, your mailboxes, all within the customer's Microsoft tenant. So we built out custom licenses as a way for our clients to add as many different items and how they calculate it into Sync 365 and use that as an item that they can bill for automatically.
So it's almost like taking the billing count side and just using that to define this is what you're really billing for, not just the Microsoft license.
Correct. So take, for instance, a email signature application that you sell to your customers. Typically, this is either going to be applied to all active mailboxes, or it's going to be a group in the Microsoft tenant that has that feature. And so in Sync 365, you can come in, create a custom license, say, I want the quantity of people in this group. And then you've got that item that you can apply that product to and bill automatically.
Okay, and so that can be done, I believe from what you were saying there, that can be done at like department level, group level. You can set up, again, all sorts of rules around when this applies, what product it applies to. So let's say, for example, an MSP is selling to an organization with all sorts of different teams, and the sales team in particular need a insights package that they sell on their email piece. That could just be applied automatically to the sales team, and the MSP wouldn't need to remember to add that to each individual going forwards.
Yeah, 100%. So, and there's multiple ways you can do that, but you can get really complex calculations with our calculated custom licenses. For instance, we might go, we want all users in the sales department, make sure we exclude any users that are disabled if someone's gone on maternity leave or whatnot. And then we might also have a situation where it's all users in the sales department, but the manager doesn't have it. So then you can also add a line item that says subtract all users in the sales department that have the manager title. And so then you automatically, as staff change, as needs change, it will update that calculation and update the billing correctly.
Got it. So it no longer becomes a rule of whoever's managing the spreadsheet manages what gets billed.
Correct.
And with that as well, I think one thing that sort of impressed me is when you've done product demos that I've sat in on, is people are actually shocked that you've solved a really big problem, but one that people almost don't think of. So what made you think of this as the problem to be solved?
I've always been very solution focused. And I remember when it first came up from people asking about integrations with this vendor or that vendor, and I started looking at how would we integrate with all of these different APIs and different ways they do things, and just having the thought that pretty much all of these tie back to a certain thing in the Microsoft tenant. So why not just keep that as the source of truth? And at the very least, it gets you 98, 99% of the way there with the correct billing, and not having to spend that time each month is worth it.
So this on its own is a really powerful feature. And I think what's really interesting is when you've brought this on, you've not gone and added it as a separate standalone sales item, right? It's actually included with the Sync 365 subscription. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Our focus really is on how do we deliver the most value for our customers. So as we add new features and functionality, everything that's part of what our core system does just gets added in and available to use.
So someone signing up today, then they might go ahead with all the features that we've got now, and you come up with another brilliant idea 3 months down the line. They're going to get that thrown into their account, updated, and even onboarded to that straight away, free of charge in most cases.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that in itself is a really powerful thing, because I know clients who have come on board a year ago and now getting these new great features and really succeeding from that. So we know that the custom license piece in itself is a really brilliant tool, but what's the one thing that you find the coolest about what you've built with Think 365? When you look at it as a standalone, what would you say, damn, that's cool?
I think what it will be is our automated license mapping, because that is going to be a real standout in the marketplace that no one else has. And that in itself, for one initial onboarding, will just take that whole process down to potentially a couple hours to get set up and ready to go, and just get a set of approvals to go, yes, these are correct. And just ongoing any changes or ones that pop up for that, the power of that just saves even more time and reduces what currently is an alert for something that's changed that you've got to update.
So for our customers who don't know what that is yet, this new feature that you're bringing on, could you give us a bit more depth about what that brings to the party?
Yeah, so the standard process is you've got a customer, you've got a license in it. You need to go in, set what product you're going to bill for that, and set what agreement or contract it's going to. And that sets it up to start automating that process. Your initial setup's going to be for each of the licenses you use. We're going to select what product we use for the monthly billing, what we use for the annual commitments for each of them, and then we've got that in the system. And so from there, we can tie together when a license appears, we can go, oh, this needs to match to that for this customer, and go to this agreement. And you can have that as automatically approve it, or come up with, we'll match it, and you just give it a once over and go, yes, that's right.
Okay, so you've already taken the sort of automation of billing and reconciliation down from several days a month to a couple of hours a month. So what this basically does is taking down the administration and setup of our own tool, and almost takes it from a couple of days or maybe an hour with you down to almost a snap of your fingers, and it's done consistently forever.
Yeah, 100%. That's the main outcome we want, is save our customers time, make it effective, and give them one less thing to worry about.
Now, if somebody is listened to and they're resonating with some of the issues that we've identified, so they're getting high invoice queries, they're not really sure where their billing sits, or they're sure, but it takes them about 5 days out of the month to get there, where should they go now to get started with a Think 365 free trial?
I think if they go to the website, think365license.com, all the info's on there. There's a really quick link to get started on the free trial. Alternatively, they can book a demo meeting with us, and we'll take them through a demo and have a chat to them about their current setup.